HMS Leda 1800. HMS Leda, launched in 1800, was the lead ship of a successful class of 47 British Royal Navy 38-gun sailing frigates. Leda's design was based on the French Hébé, which the British had captured in 1782. Hébé herself was the name vessel for the French Hébé-class frigates. Hébé, therefore, has the rare distinction of being the model for both a French and a British frigate class. Leda was wrecked at the mouth of Milford Haven in 1808. Captain Honeyman was exonerated of all blame, as it was a pilot error. French Revolutionary Wars. Captain George Johnstone Hope commissioned Leda in November 1800. In 1801 he sailed her in the English Channel and to the coast of Egypt. On 12 March 1801, Leda recaptured the slave ship Bolton, Captain Watson, a 20-gun letter of marque that had sailed from Demerara for Liverpool some 6 weeks previously in company with Union and Dart. These two vessels were also slave ships and letters of marque, all carrying valuable cargoes of sugar, coffee, indigo, and cotton. During the voyage, Union started to take on water, so her crew transferred to Bolton. Then Bolton and Dart parted company in a gale. Next, Bolton had the misfortune to meet the French privateer Giard, which was armed with 26 guns and had a crew of 260 men. Giard captured Bolton in an hour-long fight that killed 2 passengers and wounded Watson and 5 men. Although Giard was damaged, she had suffered no casualties. Bolton was also carrying ivory, a tiger, and a large collection of birds, monkeys, and the like. Then, on 5 April, Leda captured the French ship Désirée of 8 men and 70 tons. She was sailing from Bordeaux to Brel with a cargo of wheat. 4 days later, Leda recaptured the Portuguese ship Caesar of 10 men and 100 tons. Caesar had been sailing from Bristol to Lisbon with a cargo of sundries when the French privateer Laura had captured her. Lastly, on 1 May, Leda captured the French privateer Jupiter. Jupiter, of 90 tons, was armed with 16 guns and had a crew of 60 men. She was from Morlaix-on-Cruise. On the same day, Leda recaptured the Portuguese vessel Tejo. Then, on 2 September, Leda captured Venturos. Because Leda served in the Navy's Egyptian campaign 8 March to 8 September 1801, her officers and crew qualified for the class Egypt to the Naval General Service Medal that the Admiralty issued in 1847 to all surviving claimants. In September 1802, Leda came under the command of Captain John or James Hardy. Napoleonic Wars. Captain Robert Honeyman or Honeyman recommissioned Leda in August 1803 for the North Sea. He would remain her captain until her loss in 1808. Still, at various times Leda was under the temporary command of Captain Henry Digby in 1804 and Captain John Hartley in February 1805. In 1803 Leda was in the Channel. When the war with France recommenced, Honeyman was put in charge of a small squadron of gun brigs off Boulogne. On 18 May, Leda and Amelia detained the Dutch ship Phoenix. The next day, Leda captured Bode's Lust. 5 days after that, Leda, Amelia, Raisonnable, and Jellicade were in company at the capture of the Dutch ship Tweevierenden. On 29 September, Honeyman and his squadron attacked a division of 26 enemy gunboats. The engagement lasted several hours until the gunboats took refuge off the pier in Boulogne. Honeyman wanted to have his bomb vessels engage them, but winds and tide were unfavorable. The next day 25 more French gunboats arrived. However, before they could join the division that had arrived the night before, the British were able to drive 2 on shore where they were wrecked. The British suffered no casualties or material damage, though a shell did explode in Leda's hold. Fortunately, this did little damage and caused no casualties. On 21 October, Honeyman sighted a convoy of 6 French sloops, some armed, under the escort of a gun brig. He sent Harpy and Lark to pursue them, but the winds were uncooperative, and the squadron was unable to engage. Instead, the hired armed cutter Admiral Mitchell, which had only 35 men and 12 12-pounder carronades, came up and attacked the convoy. After 2.5 hours of cannonading, Admiral Mitchell succeeded in driving one sloop and the brig, which was armed with 12 32-pounder guns, on the rocks. Admiral Mitchell had one gun dismounted, suffered damage to her mast and rigging, and had 5 men wounded, 2 seriously. At the end of July 1804, a boarding party under Lieutenant Lean took Leda's boats to mount an unsuccessful attack on a French gun vessel in Boulogne Roads. The attackers succeeded in capturing their target, but the strong tide prevented them from retrieving her. Casualties were heavy in the cutting-out party, and Lean was among the dead. In all, only 14 out of the 38 men in the boarding party returned to Leda. Early in the morning of 24 April 1805, Leda, again under Honeyman's command after Hartley's temporary command, sighted 26 French vessels rounding Cap Gris-Nez. Honeyman immediately ordered Fury, Harpy, Railer, Bruiser, Gallant, Archer, Locust, Tickler, Watchful, Monkey, Firm, and Starling to intercept. After a fight of about 2 hours, Starling and Locust had captured 7 armed shites in an action within pistol shot of the shore batteries on Cap Gris-Nez. The shites were all of 25 to 28 tons burthen, and carried in all 117 soldiers and 43 seamen under the command of officers from the 51st Infantry Regiment. The French convoy had been bound for Ambleteuse from Dunkirk. On the British side, the only casualty was 1 man wounded on Archer. The 7 shites were: Shite No. 52, under the command of a sub-lieutenant of infantry L'Oreal, armed with 3 24-pounders. Shite No. 48, under the command of a Joran of the 51st the infantry, armed with 2 6-pounders, 1 24-pounder, and 1 brass howitzer. Shite No. 57, under the command of Lieutenant L'Oreal of 51st Infantry, armed with 1 24-pounder and 2 6-pounders. Shite No. 45, an unarmed transport under the command of Sub-Lieutenant Littner of the 51st Infantry, armed with 1 24-pounder, 1 12-pounder, and 1 6-pounder. Shite No. 3, under the command of Mr. Calder, the senior commander, who left her before the British took possession of her. Shite No. 54, under the command of Sub-Lieutenant Bragger of the 51st Infantry, armed with 1 24-pounder and 2 6-pounders. Shite No. 43, Sub-Lieutenant Billa of the 51st Infantry, armed with 1 24-pounder and 2 6-pounders. The next day Archer brought in 2 more shites, No. S-44 and 58, each armed with 1 24-pounder and 2 12-pounders. On 25 April 1805 Railer towed 8 of the French shites into the Downs. Starling, which had received a great deal of damage, followed Railer in. Leda was one of the escorts to a convoy of transports and EIC vessels that were part of the expedition under General Sir David Baird and Admiral Sir Home Riggs Popham that would in 1806 capture the Dutch Cape Colony. They would carry supplies and troops to the Cape and then continue on their voyages. At 3:30 a.m. on 1 November, near Roca's Atoll at 3:51:27 and 33:48:57 W, Leda sighted breakers and fired a gun, the signal to tack, herself barely missing the danger. King George was unable to tack and wrecked. As Britannia was on the point of tacking, she ran afoul of Streatham and lost her bowsprit and foretopmast. She then drifted on to the atoll where she lost her rudder and bilged. In the morning, Leda was able to rescue the survivors from King George and Comet, Europe, and Varuna sent their boats and were able to rescue about 400 people from Britannia, including Captain Brisk, his crew, and recruits for the EIC armies. The British fleet, including Leda, arrived in Table Bay on 5 January 1806 and anchored off Robben Island. Leda supported the landing of the troops. On 6 January 1807, Leda was in company with Pheasant and Daphne at the capture of Anne Denning, master. Leda shared in the capture of the Rollo on 21 February. On 4 March, she was at Table Bay and in sight when Diadem captured the French frigate Volontaire and the two transports that Volontaire was escorting, which turned out to be two British transports that the frigate had captured in the Bay of Biscay, together with the British troops on board. On 19 March, the squadron captured the General Isidro. In June 1810, the prize money for the capture of the Cape of Good Hope was payable. Then, in July 1810, there was further distribution of money for the capture of Volontaire and Rolla. In December 1810, prize money for General Isidro was payable. Leda then accompanied home Popham across the Atlantic for his expedition to the River Plate. On 9 September 1806, Leda pursued a brigantine on her way to Montevideo until the brigantine's crew beached her. Leda then sent her boats to retrieve or destroy the brigantine. However, when the boarding party reached the brigantine, they discovered that her crew had already abandoned her. They also found that she was unarmed, though pierced for 14 guns. Because of the heavy seas, the boarding party could not retrieve the brigantine or even burn her. Instead, they simply set her adrift among the breakers. During the operation, small arms fire from the shore wounded 4 men. Leda remained in South America until the final British evacuation in about September 1807. On 22 August she was in sight, together with a number of other warships, when Procris captured Minerva. Leda then returned to Sheerness and served in the Channel. At 8 o'clock on the morning of 4 December, some 4 leagues 19 km off Cap de Coix, Leda sighted a privateer lugger making for the French coast, as well as a brig that appeared to be her prize. The brig ran for Havre de Grace, but the lugger sailed in another direction as Leda pursued her. After 6 hours, Leda succeeded in capturing the lugger, which turned out to be the brand-new vessel Adolphe, under the command of Nicholas Faimenter. Adolphe was armed with 10 18-pound carronades, 4 4-pounder guns, 2 2-pounder guns, and 2 swivel guns. She was 8 days out of Boulogne. She had only 25 men on board, as she had already put another 45 men of her crew on prizes. She ran ashore on the Bemberg ledge, and it was unlikely she would be gotten off. Loss. On 31 January 1808, Leda was caught in a gale that did much damage to the ship. Honeyman decided to try to take refuge at Milford Haven, but she was wrecked at the mouth of the harbor. The quarantine master for the port came aboard Leda to urge her abandonment. The entire crew was able to get off safely. A court-martial held on board HMS Salvador del Mundo in the Hamoes acquitted Honeyman and his crew of all blame. It found that the pilot, James Garrity, had laid a wrong course after mistaking Thorn Island for the Stacked Rocks, a mistake that was due to the bad weather and poor visibility. Notes, citations, and references. Notes. Citations. References. Grocott, Terence, 1997. Shipwrecks of the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Eras. London, Chatham. ISBN 1,861,760,302. Hepper, David J. 1994. British warship losses in the Age of Sail, 1650–1859. Rotherfield, Jean Boudriot. ISBN 0-948-864-33. Marshall, John 1824. Honeyman, Robert. Royal Naval Biography. 2, Part 1. London, Longman and Company. Field, George McCall, ed. 1899 Records of the Cape Colony. Feb. 1803 July 1806. Government of the Cape Colony. Williams, Gomer 1897. History of the Liverpool Privateers and Letters of Marque, with an account of the Liverpool slave trade. W. Honeyman. Winfield, Riff 2008. British Warships in the Age of Sail 1793–1817. Design, Construction, Careers and Fates. Seaforth. ISBN 186176246-246-1.